happy Tuesday. I'm Anna Palmer. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Punchbowl News. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for a conversation about advancing with AI with Representative Laurel Lee, the Republican from Florida. A big thank you to Google for partnering with us on this event, which comes out of a larger partnership, a product that we have been working on for the past several weeks, focused on how AI can help in a lot of different industries, whether it's workforce and education, energy. Really encourage you to check out punchbowl.news and the entire project, where we feature different leaders from Glenn Youngkin of Virginia to Eric Swalwell of California, and of course, Representative Lee as well. After my conversation with the Congresswoman, I'll be joined on stage for a fireside chat with Lisa Gelber, founder of Grow with Google. As always, you can find Punchbowl News on all social media platforms at Punchbowl News, and we encourage you to share this conversation. With that, I'm going to welcome Representative Lee to the stage for a conversation. Hello, Congressman.
Oh.
That's quite the entrance here. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, we are going to get started with a few news of the day questions. There is no shortage of things to speak about. First 100 days of President Donald Trump's administration, his second term is officially happened now today. What do you think is the biggest accomplishment so far?
I think the thing that is probably the most notable was the quick and effective action to secure the southern border. As someone who was a candidate this last cycle, I can tell you that was probably the number one thing we were hearing from constituents in my district before the election. So being able to actually deliver on that promise and to come up with some security at the border was really an important goal and something that we've seen tremendous progress on right out of the gate. So I would identify that as probably the single most important thing we've done here.
On that note, U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement Agency announced over the weekend that the agency and state lawmakers in Florida arrested nearly 800 people over 4 days in what they describe as a massive multi-agency immigration enforcement crackdown. Do you support these types of operations? Do they make you concerned at all in terms of just the size and scope? What are you hearing from constituents?
Well, I think it's important to just get back to the baseline principle of, being a nation of laws, following a consistent set of standards and procedures, and enforcing the laws that are already on the books. Earlier in my career, I spent time as a federal prosecutor and later a judge, and I think that's really the foundational principle that we need to follow, is when we have clear and existing laws, making sure we're applying them, we're following them, and then that in turn sends a message to, around the world that this is how we do things here, this is what's going to happen, and it eliminates some of those incentives to try to enter this country illegally in the first place, which is ultimately the goal.
All right, well, it is go time on reconciliation. We were speaking about this backstage, that you were on both the Judiciary as well as the Energy and Commerce committees. So two major committees that are going to be dealing with this complex piece of legislation. Energy and Commerce is really where I want to focus just, and then we're going to get to advancing with AI. But I do want to ask you about this because you have to come up with nearly $900 billion with a B dollars in cuts. Medicaid is the top target. You met yesterday on it. What's your thoughts on where this is all going?
So the conversation really, one thing comes to the forefront, and that is that the Republicans in Congress are committed to securing and strengthening Medicaid, that we are not interested in having anyone lose their benefits. We want to be sure that we are protecting those who this program was designed for, the vulnerable. And so, we're working on how can we identify either, the fraud, waste, and abuse, people who don't belong in the program in the first place. And that ties back into, actually, our broader topic for today, in that I think one of the things we need as government to do better is harness technology. When we have access to major sets of data, major government programs, but we're unable to analyze that data to help us identify effectively what was an administrative error, who shouldn't have ever been on this role or program in the first place. And I think we're really at a moment right now where we have an opportunity to do things more efficiently and better, to tighten up the program, which will in the long run have the effect of securing it for the people who need it.
Can you actually avoid substantial cuts to the program while meeting your reconciliation target?
I think that we can,
Okay.
and so that's something that we're working very much on this week, next week. There's going to be a tremendous focus there. There are other things that we can discuss in the energy and commerce space that could have an effect on those numbers. We have spectrum, we have some other things, some environmental things, all of which we can look at to try to meet those fiscal goals.
All right, we will be watching that very closely. Let's shift to the topic at hand, advancing with AI. Can you talk a bit about how you see AI impacting the future of work?
Well, just foundationally, AI is going to affect just about everything we are doing, and we see it touching industries, everything from manufacturing to logistics, and anything in between. And one of the most important things for us to focus on is anticipating how it can affect what we're working on and how we can empower Americans in different sectors, in different levels of our educational system to be prepared and also be flexible enough to know that we don't even see today the thing that may be the innovative tool a year from now, and to be able to have enough agility to adapt and embrace the things that are coming next.
You are a member of the House Task Force on AI. Talk about what the purposes of it, what have you been meeting about when it comes to that?
Well, I'll start here. It was such an interesting task force to get to be part of because it was, of course, bipartisan. So it brought together Republicans and Democrats who had an interest in technology and policy. And it also brought members from each of the committees of jurisdiction. So the idea was that we can bring our individual knowledge and perspectives on how AI and technology is affecting policy development and bring those all into the same room, hear from experts, and try to build the landscape of what Congress needs to be thinking about. So, in my case, I was coming from the Judiciary Committee. So we had spent a lot of time thinking about intellectual property. Also, there's some intersection with AI as a tool in the criminal justice space as well. And so we all brought those experiences to the table. So it was an incredibly collaborative group and really just a great experience. It's not every day in Washington that we get to do something that's so bipartisan. So I think all of us really enjoyed getting to be part of the task force.
I mean, when you think about that, Congress hasn't exactly been known for being super tech savvy either over the years. Do you think AI is different? Like, how focused do you think that you and your colleagues are in terms of actually using it yourselves and being kind of early adopters?
So I do think that there is a focus, and it's interesting the things that come up first from the perspective of a lawmaker. And of course, also, most of us are working with a staff replete with brilliant 20-somethings. And so even where members themselves may not be tech forward, we are surrounded with people who are. So certainly, I think we're all getting exposed to the ways in which it can be helpful in our offices. I would love to see use of AI and technology related to our constituent services. I think there's a lot of room for growth there.
That's interesting.
Because certainly we see the same types of calls, the same types of cases. That is one of the things I think is a real opportunity for us to modernize the way we think about how we help constituents back home. And then when it comes to policy, there are also things that are a bit universal that you see coming to the surface first, like the concept of deepfakes. Certainly, anyone who is an elected official understands the danger of that, the proliferation of those things, the fake likeness or your words. And so those are some of the things that I think came up first as big consensus issues for us to work on.
Well, and you were co-sponsor of the Defiance Act. So tell us a little bit about that legislation and its goals.
Yes. So I worked with Representative Ocasio-Cortez to put together the Defiance Bill last Congress, which would create a private right of action for someone who is depicted in an explicit deepfake image. And unfortunately, that's something that is very common, that a number of current members have already experienced. And so we worked together on the Defiance Act, and I anticipate we'll be reintroducing it this Congress. And it is an important step toward giving people who are victims of this kind of behavior a cause of action and something that they can do to help stop the proliferation of these images.
And are you optimistic this becomes law this Congress?
I am optimistic this becomes law. So we have really a remarkable coalition, there too, very bipartisan, a lot of interest across the board. Within the AI task force, this was one of the subjects that most quickly got consensus support. It is something that is easy to understand, easy to empathize with, and generally there's just a recognition that it's inappropriate, and we need to do what we can to mitigate it.
So let's switch gears here a little bit. We're all grappling with using AI from industry, but let's talk about today's kids. I know that that is a huge focus, right, in terms of what role do schools have, what role do companies have. What role do you think schools and secondary education should be having when it comes to AI, placing a focus on it for them?
Well, I think there are a few things. First, we need to be preparing tomorrow's workforce. So everything, I'm starting early with a renewed focus on STEM education. This was something that we needed to be doing in America even before the conversation shifted to AI. So making sure that we are building an educational system where our children will focus on these types of skills. Later on, I think there are a lot of opportunities in the college years, whether it's our local community colleges or universities, to make sure that there are options with a course of study, training, shorter courses, certifications, something like what we've seen in cyber, where there came a point where we realized we don't have the workforce we need, even sitting at today's universities. So we need to rethink what constitutes qualification for particular positions, or how might we create a certificate, or how might we create a training program so that we can hire in a way that is both skills-based and degree-based to help meet those workforce needs with people who are able to do the jobs effectively.
Is there a role for the administration or Congress, the education department, the labor department, to kind of be playing a role to help kind of incentivize perhaps the secondary education or community colleges to invest in these kinds of tools and resources?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I think it starts really with each of us in our individual districts, and then comes back up to the broader focus in Washington, D.C. So just last week, I had a program in my district in partnership with Google, where we went out to a middle school and did an internet safety training. And so it was great for the students, the teachers. It really helped shine a light on some of the things that young people need to be watching. I also recently did a roundtable with businesses and our universities and colleges, so that we could connect the businesses talking about their workforce needs, the types of things and the schools could talk about what programs they had, and they were able to actually help each other. Some of the private businesses investing in programs and helping with the training.
You told our reporter Sammy Handler in an interview for our feature on AI in the workforce that you didn't think AI would replace the American worker. What role do you think it will have?
I think that it enhances the American worker and helps us become more productive, more creative. It really is a force multiplier for the American worker. And certainly there's some tasks that can be just straight automated. I toured a facility, a logistics facility, where much of what was happening, I have a big Amazon facility in my district, and much of what was happening in the middle of it, humans weren't touching. There were humans all around watching it happen, making sure it was happening correctly, but there's some things that we really can just automate. But many times I think the great power in AI is the partnership. Having an AI as part of your team to help generate new ideas or constructive feedback. So I think it will really be a productivity enhancement, it just really across business sectors.
So oftentimes industry doesn't always want to be regulated, or there's friction points there, and oftentimes Congress can be slow, right, to act when it comes to actually kind of catching up with technology or potentially what the legislation might look like. AI seemed like it could be different, and maybe it will be different. Where do you think the role Congress has? Are there certain kind of specific things that you think that Congress should be focused on when it comes to regulating or laying out some of the rules of the road?
Yes, so I think it is important. We hear generally the goal of wanting to foster innovation, not over-regulate, but create guardrails. So I think as the task force, one of our most important things was to try to break down, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? What is an appropriate guardrail? How do we achieve those twin goals? So in Congress, what I think that we are most likely to do is try to work on things like best practices standards. Where can we integrate, for example, NIST? Could NIST be working on things like standards for model cards that we'll talk about, provide some transparency about, when is AI being used, for what purpose? How can we get involved in some baseline standard that isn't going to require, for example, we don't need to be looking at somebody's algorithms. Like that's not going to be a productive use of Congress. But we can, I think, work on things like transparency. When and where do we need to be auditing? Thinking about specific use cases differently. Some are obviously more critical than others. The other thing that I think will be a big focus ultimately for Congress is trying to tackle the issue of intellectual property. And how do we make sure that, of course, we want to be leading in the world when it comes to artificial intelligence. But we also have a vital role in protecting intellectual property and those who create creative works, and making sure that we are doing both. I believe we can do both, but that we honor and protect both of those things.
Well, it's interesting too, because you have the US, but it's obviously we're in a global world, right? And so you have this kind of patchwork system that's being developed right now. I assume that you think it's important that America does lead when it comes to that versus maybe other countries kind of being first actors.
So I absolutely do. I think it is critical that America continues to lead. That said, I think that we can do both, and one of the things that we need to do is enforce our own standards and try to protect our own innovators, whether it is in the intellectual property of the AI creators or others, that we protect those from other countries that are attempting to interfere, steal our intellectual property. That is something that touches not just this subject, but of course, many others.
So let's project forward. What's next when it comes to AI and the workforce? You've been kind of meeting with folks, talking to schools. Is there something that's happening on the ground that maybe we don't hear about as much in Washington that we should be thinking about?
Well, I think the greatest challenge for us really is going to be the thing we touched on at the outset, which is agility, a recognition that what these tools can do is evolving so rapidly that we're going to need to continue. This is, like we say in cyber, a race with no finish line, that this is going to continue to evolve. Another thing that I think will be a big focus for us congressionally is the idea of energy production, that as we are using more AI, the need for powering data centers has become critical. Right. So I know within the committee and really throughout Congress, the focus on American energy production and increasing that, looking at really an all of the above energy strategy so that we're prepared to meet that need, will be something else that I think is very much on the horizon.
All right, this is gonna be the last word because we are quickly running out of time. What's one area you think we should be focused on that we aren't yet?
That we aren't yet? I think that the focus not yet is probably just the evolution. I think trying to anticipate what's happening next, and we're going to need our private sector partners to do that. Yeah. Because as you point out, there aren't a lot of, we've got a couple, but there aren't very many lawmakers who are independently tech experts. So we need our private sector partners to be with us side by side, helping us identify, and the same with the others, like the content creators. We need to be hearing from them about how these technologies are affecting their industries so that we can have the best information and insight when we go to drafting policy.
All right, Representative Lee, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Take care. All right. All right, now I would like to welcome Lisa Gelber, founder of Grow with Google, to the stage for a fireside chat. Lisa. All right, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Well, that was a good tee up for our conversation. I want to just start with Grow with Google for anybody here who is not super familiar with it. How did it start, and what is its goal?
Yeah. So we started Grow with Google back in 2018 with the goal of ensuring that the opportunities that are created by technology are truly available to everyone. And what we do in Grow with Google is help people advance their skills, careers, and businesses by teaching them how to use technology to accomplish their goals. And I'm really proud to say that over the last several years, we've helped 12 million Americans learn to use digital tools, whether it's to better run their business, or to get trained and certified for a higher quality, higher paying job.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean, it's pretty precious. Like everyone's talking about AI now, right? We're all kind of trying to, myself included, upskill your goals, figure out how, as a small business it can be utilized more. But 2017 is kind of early stages. You have something called a career certificate. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so when we looked around and thought about what do different companies need in terms of where are they trying to hire people, and Congresswoman Lee just mentioned cybersecurity as an example. In our country, we have a real shortage of cybersecurity people, and that is a problem. But there's lots of fields like that, data analytics, even IT support, also some less technical things like project management and other fields. So we assessed where are there amazing jobs throughout our country where people are needed to be trained, and where do we have people who are looking for new careers, and how can we kind of connect the two? We started with the idea of looking at people without college degrees. About 80% of jobs that pay well in our country say they require one. About a third of Americans have one, and that's a giant mismatch. That means about 80 million Americans are locked out of good jobs. So we created the Google Career Certificates, a training and certification program to help people get all the training they need and be certified by Google to get those jobs, things like cybersecurity, data analytics, et cetera. And it's really expanded. Now people who have college degrees are looking for ways to reskill, whether you're advanced in your career or you're just finishing your schoolwork, using these training programs to show that you know your stuff and get a good job. And we've graduated about 1.3 million people from the program in the last few years.
How does AI, because obviously this is bigger than AI, but AI is a part of that, especially now with our current focus. How does AI fit into all of this?
It's so important that everybody learn to use AI. I think AI can be a really powerful tool, whether you're trying to get stuff done faster in your day job or have it help you advance your expertise or creativity or productivity. If you're a small business owner, it's ridiculously helpful. We know our small businesses are so resource constrained. So we know that AI can be a great equalizer in society. It can help a less experienced or lower skilled person perform at the level of a higher skilled person. But that's not going to happen automatically. We had to kind of create a way where we made it really easy for people to learn AI. So part of Grow with Google now has AI training. We have an AI Essentials course. We have a Prompting Essentials course. We have courses for teachers and small businesses. But all of these things we know, we have to reach so many people that we would never want to try to do it alone as Google. So we have partnerships with all kinds of organizations, educational institutions, so high schools, community colleges, universities, public sector organizations, but also employers are really engaged in helping upskill their people through our programs.
So what is Google's perspective when it comes to AI and the impact of the American worker? We heard from the Congresswoman that the American worker is not going away, but maybe the jobs are changing or shifting. How do you see the landscape?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I mean, I think there's a lot of, I think she used the word agility that we all need to have. This is obviously a new muscle, a new skill for all of us to learn. But the good news is this technology by nature speaks our language. So unlike when I was learning computers and you had to use like a DOS prompt, AI, you just talk to it the way you talk to a person, right? And if you can learn to prompt well, which is the reason we built our Prompting Essentials course, you can get amazing results out of it. So the good news is I think AI really is for everyone.
Talk a little bit about higher education institutions. Talk about some of the partnerships that you all have. They are playing, what role do you see them playing? What do professionals need to understand in order to be competitive in this workforce?
Yeah, I think higher ed has a really important role. I think the forward-looking community colleges and public universities are doing a really good job of exposing people to these tools. I think the key thing is don't ban the tools. I think there was initially a real issue, not just in colleges, but teachers saying, gosh, this is a cheating tool. We can't let students use it. But what I think people are realizing is that it's an important learning tool. As a matter of fact, it's for schools and for students, it can be a personal tutor. Well, what an empowering thing that everyone can have their own tutor, but even more so for teachers. And one of my favorite things that we've done is create an AI course specifically for teachers. We saw in Google search data that we look at like AI for blank queries, and AI for teachers was the top trending query throughout the last year. Now they really want to know, how can I put this to work to help my students learn better? How can I put it to work to do some of my administrative tasks, like write the class newsletter? How can I customize my lesson plans, teach the science lesson using sports analogies? AI is great for all of these things. So we made a course specifically for teachers. It's totally free, quick 2 hours, really life-changing.
There's a lot of discussion about how AI could either democratize information, kind of as you're talking about, and knowledge, or increase existing inequalities. What are some of the risks when it comes to workforce opportunities and ensuring equity?
Yeah, I think the most important thing in ensuring equity is just teaching people to use the tools. Like we call it make AI work for you, because that's what the tools can do. And we're seeing such great high impact by doing that.
We were backstage, you were talking a little bit, I thought it was really interesting just kind of thinking about different kind of groups and things that you've been able to work with, military spouses being one of them. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we're so proud to have been supporting the military community for years and years as part of our Grow with Google initiative. And we've really been trying to solve two problems. One is really helping military spouses. They do have higher unemployment rates, unfortunately, because they often move so frequently, and it's hard to restart over and over again. So we've been using the Google Career Certificate program to give them this high-quality, portable, industry-recognized credential that when they do move, it's easier to get a new role or to prove you know your stuff and be able to work remotely. And then the other big obstacle for a lot of folks is transitioning military personnel, people who have served our country and then are transitioning back to the civilian workforce. A great way to get a new job as you transition is to do a training and certification program. And so I'm really proud to say that we've helped tens of thousands of people from the military community earn a Google Career Certificate to get into a high-paying job.
So we talked a lot with the Congressman about Congress's role, potentially the role for the administration or different departments. How do you see that? What's your, I mean, you're coming at it from the private sector, but what do you hope Washington, might have learned from some of the previous, kind of tech fights that maybe they'll take a different approach this time?
I think if we want America to continue to lead in this space, we have to be forward-thinking about how these technologies can really help our society. We've talked a little bit about students and teachers. We've talked a little bit about our military community. But really, the everyday worker has a lot to benefit from AI. And the incredible things that it'll do for science and other areas as well. I think it's great to have people like Congresswoman Lee and the AI Task Force be pro-innovation in their thinking, and their report really was quite pro-innovation.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are almost out of time, but before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask a lot of folks in your seat when we kind of have these conversations. What's the one thing you hope our audience here in person, as well as live stream, there's staffers, there's people that are advocates in this space, that you hope they take away from this conversation?
Yeah, we're so proud. We've helped over 12 million Americans, but it's just not enough. We need to do more, and we can't do it alone. I think working with government, working with educational institutions, nonprofits, workforce organizations. There's a lot that can be done to help Americans move forward. We're super excited to do that, and we really want to do it together.
All right, we are going to leave it there. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me this morning. A big thank you to Congressman Lee, as well as Google, for partnering with us for this event, as well as the larger ones to watch, Advancing with AI. I encourage you to check that out at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.